Finally, I'm here in the ancient city of Benin. I came here to meet an historian to analyze the history of Oba Orhogbua. The first day I heard about this Oba, I was so impressed about his outstanding relationship with the colonial people, precisely the Portuguese. I hope I'm in the right place. Hi, Master Izodowa.
Are you Madam Oba Esigie?
Yes, I came all the way from Canada. You know, I promised to come and visit you.
Yes, I remembered you called that you're coming to ask some historical questions.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, nice to meet you too. Osamedero la viagare o maya tota.
So, Imaswe, you know, I'm here specifically because of the history of Oba Orhogbua. So, what year did he rule the Benin Kingdom?
The story of Oba Orhogbua is a very exciting story that sometimes I don't feel too happy that a lot of works were not done or documented about him. All right, and also because a lot of historians have not come out to speak explicitly of the legacies that Oba Orhogbua created or achieved. Oba Orhogbua reigned in 1547 to 1580. That's the year Oba Orhogbua reigned. For about 33 years, he was on the throne of his forefathers. Obviously, Oba Esigie was the father of Oba Orhogbua. And history easily remembers that Oba Esigie was a Christian king, even a Christian even before he became a king. So as soon as he became the Oba of Benin in 1504, he got baptized. All right, but before then, he was already a Christian. All right, because I'm aware that Christianity is well attributed to the reign of Oba Esigie. That's because it became more rooted in Benin. However, Christianity was already prevailing in Benin before Oba Esigie became the Oba of Benin. Notably, Oba Eware during his reign, there were the Benins in terms of mythology.
Oba Eware ruled the Benin Kingdom in what year? 16th century?
No. He ruled in 15th century.
15th century.
In 15th century. So while Oba Esigie, who should be attributed after Oba Eware, the next Oba was Esigie, all right, who was his first surviving son. Of course, Esigie spent about 14 days on the throne. That's as the shortest lived Oba. Then after which Esigie's younger brother, Oba Olua, became the Oba of Benin. Then after Oba Olua, he became Oba Ozoluaniba of Miekong, who became the Oba of Benin. After Oba Ozoluaniba of Miekong sojourned to the land of the ancestors, his son, Oba Esigie, took the mantle of leadership. But however, Oba Eware, who is now attributed as a great-great-grandfather of Oba Esigie, there was already an attribute of Christianity prevailing in the Benin society, but however, it was not deep-rooted. All right? Then during Ozolwa, Oba Eware did send some of his trusted comrades, one of which was Orhogbua, to Lisbon along the time of before the time of Oba Zolwa became the Oba of Benin. And that man was called Ohen Okun of Ugoton. Now, when Ohen Okun got to Lisbon, he gave a particular report to King John of Portugal. That was the report that he gave to King John of Portugal led to the discovery of Cape of Good Hope, South Africa. Now, sometimes that part of our history has not really been talked about, that it was a report that a Benin gave to the Portuguese that led to the discovery of Cape of Good Hope, South Africa. Now, the report was that there was a king regarded as Ogene, in which the Obas of Benin pay tribute to. So the Portuguese wanted to know, as powerful as the King of Benin, that there was still a king that the King of Benin paid tribute to. At that time, it was the Portuguese referred to him as Ogane, which we the Benins eventually refer to as Ogene, Ovi Ogene Nuhe. The Uhe we now refer to today is no longer, it's not Ileife, it's somewhere in Kogi. So it was that report that Owankun gave to King John that led to an explorer of that time, Bartolomeo Diaz, to set a sail to Africa that led to the discovering of Cape of Good Hope. So I am saying all these things. I know you are here to learn so much about Oba Orhogbua. I am giving you this pre-information so that you can understand that Christianity was already prevailing before the time of Oba Esigie. All right. So it was shortly that Oba Esigie, as a prince, gave his life to Christ. So of course he cannot do so much being the crown prince. He has to be an Oba for him to bring policies that roots firmly the Christianity and its belief. So when Oba Esigie became Christian, of course, the first thing he needed to do also to officially become a baptized Christian. It's almost the same year that he became the Oba of Benin. He got baptized. So obviously, one way to strengthen the ties between the missionaries, the Portuguese missionaries, and the Benin people was Oba Esigie to send his next king, the next king of the land, Oba Orhogbua, to Lisbon to study the ways of the white people. However, he did not, Orhogbua did not travel almost immediately to Lisbon. He stayed first at Sao Tome, the island of Sao Tome. All right? It was from there that he was not transported to Lisbon. Of course, we also trace a lot of Benin descendants to Sao Tome because there was a time the Obaiwai had a strong missionary presence through Ohio at Sao Tome. And so Sao Tome became more of like another home of the Benin people. Then Orhogbua was at Sao Tome. He spent some years, few years before he went to Lisbon, where he was not trained as a seminary priest.
So he was also a sailor king.
Yes.
So what do you think motivated him to be a sailor king?
I had first of all established it was almost at the era where the Portuguese were the best sailors. All right, they were like the best seafarers at that time. So when Oba Orhogbua at that time, not yet an Oba, it seems like this princely name eludes the Benin history. So no one can really remember what was his name before he became Orhogbua. So one would just presume Prince Orhogbua and Oba Orhogbua, but scenarios, most of this history were lost. Recently, Ehengbuda, Orhogbua's son, who also became the Oba, was recently discovered that his princely name was Odiawato. With more findings, more historical deep into the ancient names of our history, it will unveil what was the princely name of Orhogbua. But for now, nobody tends to know what was the princely name. So it is good we maintain that it was Prince Orhogbua and as well as Oba Orhogbua. As a prince, he schooled in one of the seminary schools in Portugal, in Lisbon precisely. So the ways of the Portuguese, he also learnt them, not just being a priest. He had a formal education. So Oba Orhogbua, being the first and the only solo king of Benin, does not end there. He's actually quoted to be the first literate king of Benin. All right. There's some school of thought that say Oba Esigie was also literate. Now, for you to be literate, formally in Western ideology, you have to know how to read, write, and read, write. I think there's another one, and speak. You have to know how to read, write, and speak. These are the three components that makes you a literate. Oba Esigie could only speak the Portuguese language, but he could not read nor write them. So that means he was not a full literate of the Western education. So Orhogbua can be quoted as the first literate king of Benin. So obviously, after Oba Orhogbua, it took so many years before Benin had another literate king, which was in the person of Oba Kenzwa II. Then after which Oba Esigie, and we presently have the fourth literate king of Benin. So Oba Orhogbua was not just the first literate king of Benin. It's also quoted to be the first sailor king and the only. I wouldn't say the last, because we wouldn't know for now. We wouldn't know what history, what time in the future can tell. So obviously was also trained in the marine school of the Portuguese people. So he was in the seminary priest as well, and he was also a mariner, so he could understand the language of the sea. So these were some of the things that his father, in his infinite wisdom, wanted the Benins to learn from the Portuguese. Obviously, because there was an ambassadorial office of the Benins in Portugal. All right, so the Portuguese had an embassy in Benin, and the Benin also had an embassy in Lisbon. So it was a sort of a mutual beneficial concept of trading, and it's the relationship between the Benins and the Portuguese gone beyond just trading. All right, they brought Christianity that was highly accepted by the king. I wouldn't say by the entire Benin, because it eventually led to conflict, because some parts of the Benin chiefs disagreed of Oba Esigie bringing a foreign religion to the land. All right, but however, the Benins benefited so much from that relationship they had with Portuguese. Aside bringing Christianity, aside the trading, thirdly, we benefited from the warfare, the Benin Idah War. That was the first time. It was 1515. All right, that Benin Idah War happened. Now, the Benins can remember the exact date of that Benin Idah War, because a letter was written by one Duarte Perez, who was a Portuguese merchant working for the King John at that time, that he wrote a letter to the King John that Benin's is highly Christianized society because of the presence of the missionaries. However, they were currently fighting a war. So that war, that letter is quoted to be the oldest letter ever written in Nigeria. It was written October 20, 1516. All right. So it was that letter the Benins could remember, because that letter stated that it was almost a year since that war has prevailed. So that means the war actually happened between 1515 and 1516. So in that war, the Benins were able to display, in the first time in the history of what we now call Nigeria, using of guns. All right. The Benins were the first people to use gun to fight war.
Through the help of the Portuguese. Because at that time there was a clause, the first clause that you must understand, that there was a law that the king of the Portuguese had put, or more of the Christian world in the Europeans that had at that time, that until you are a Christian nation, the Europeans should not give guns to anybody, any natives, any country that are not Christianized. So one would also say that maybe that was one of the reasons Oba Esigie decided to become a Christian, so that he can have those machineries, those weaponry
to fight and further expand his already vast empire. So that was why, because the Benins were the first Christians in this part of the world, so we were also the first people that were given that right to possess guns as weapons. At the time where javelins, spades, arrows were being used as weapons of warfare. So these old eras transcended into Oba Orhogbua being asked to go and learn more of the ways and practices of the Portuguese and bring their technology, their advancement, their ideas to Benin. One should also note that we are not saying that the Benins were not civilized before the coming of the Portuguese missionaries. That means all through the ranks of Benin, right from the Ogiso era down to the present Oba dynasty, we have always been civilized people. The Europeans, the Portuguese, didn't bring civilizations to us, as a matter of fact. But however, they played a remarkable role in enhancing the growth of the civilization they met already. So the relationship between the Portuguese and the Benin transcended beyond just trading, as I have outlined. It went into establishment of embassy because there were interest of the Benins in Portugal, and there was interest of Portugal in Benin. These are accumulated effort in here. So the story goes on that after Oba Esigie, the father of Oba Orhogbua, joined his ancestors, all right, and through a very devastating sort of history that one would not want to talk about, that what led to the death of Oba Esigie. Oba Orhogbua was asked to come back.
What led to the death of Oba Esigie? You'd like to know more about
these are some of the miseries of the palace that it's not meant for the consumption of the public. All right, so
let's just keep that.
Okay, yes, obviously. So Oba Orhogbua, after the death, the passing of Oba Esigie, Oba Orhogbua came back. He was asked to return back. Of course, he was the first surviving son for Oba Esigie to take the mantle of leadership. So when he got to Benin, of course, he was already a Christian. He was already a priest.
A priest, seminary priest, of course.
A Catholic priest. So obviously, the school of thought he has undergone all through his young age. The belief, he already had a belief system. He couldn't have just forgone that belief system. So he argued that I want to become an Oba of Benin. This throne is highly traditional. It's not a religious throne. But I, as a person, as an individual, I am highly religious. I am highly religious. How would I be able to combine my religious belief of being a Christian and actually my traditional belief of becoming the Oba of Benin? So he asked.
There was a kind of a contradiction.
There was a sort of, yes, a contradiction. He asked, I want to become the Oba of Benin, but I want to maintain my faith. And the Benin said, Ahioba Gebo. You know, literally what that means is that, the Benins believe, we believe, rightly so, that Oba is God representative on earth. So you cannot be the Oba of Benin and also serve another God. So you can be a God. A God does not serve another God. All right. So you cannot be a god and serve another god. You are very free to choose, because you have other siblings who could take that mantle of becoming the king. So he decided to choose the throne.
Give up his Christian
belief. Now, that giving up the Christian belief would have been that he became traditional. So because he had that sort of Western education, you understand the concept of diplomacy in administering leadership roles. One thing he did that his father did not do was, Oba Esigie tried to enforce Christianity on the Benin people. All right? Tried to enforce Christianity on the Benin people. Almost all the policies he created was for the Benin Empire to become a Christianized nation. All right? So that was almost all the policies he created. The guild, tens and hundreds of guilds that he created. Well, there were guilds that were also very scientific, like Iwoki, the guilds of the astrologers. All right, it was also created. Those were scientific guilds because he tried. He also had, aside setting up the Holy Arosa, all right, the oldest church in Nigeria, he also had the Arosas, like the holy sacrament of school. So Oba Esigie actually established schools for learning, for people to study, for people like where you can get Western education. So he didn't only just set Christian homes, all right, or churches. He also set out like a school for the Benin nobles to learn the sort of Western education. All right. So even the letter that I spoke about that was written October 20th, 1516 by Duarte Perez also admonished that the likes of Eribo Unwangwe learnt Portuguese language, spoke Portuguese language fluently, and was able to read and write them. So that means Oba Esigie in his infinite wisdom also set education, also set school for people to also learn the ways of the white people. So he was highly Christianized. He believed in the Christian society. He believed in the Portuguese ideology. All right.
But I have one question there. Do you think the Christian faith in him is what motivated him to change the policy of burying Oba wife Iloi with the Oba?
Yes, almost, not just that, almost every policy that was created proud before him, it changed. Almost everything. And that's because I'd already established he was a Christian who wanted everybody to be Christianized, irrespective of your beliefs. He wanted you to be a Christian because he was convinced Christianity was the way for the people. Now, one other thing was, when he saw that practices that when the Oba dies, the Ioba, not necessarily, I'd established one point that the viewer should listen carefully. There's a difference between Oba's first wife, Esonerie, and Ioba. Okay. All right? Sometimes.
Ioba is the mother of the crown prince.
Yes, of the crown prince, of the next Oba. All right? Sometimes the Esonerie can also be Ioba.
Yes, it can be possible.
Yes, but sometimes as well, a son area was it's now called a son area. In the old times, it was called a nahe, the first wife of the Oba, a nahe. Okay, it's now called a son area. So sometimes the son area is also different from the Yoba. The practices was restricted to the Yoba.
Only Yoba.
Yes, not necessarily the first wife, except if the first wife is also the Yoba. Okay. So now. That was not actually the practices during the time of the Ogisos. Now, you understand, like the Benin, when we say Benin civilized, is a civilized society, some things would have mitigated to another thing that had led to the creation of such policies. All right, at one point in our history, the Benin nobles discovered that the Ioba was as powerful as the Oba. So, the mother of the sitting Oba in our old Benin became as powerful as the Oba. So, in order to make do with not serving two Oba, they also now created a policy that if the present Oba joins his ancestors, the wife who gave birth to the next Oba must also go along with him so as to have one Oba, so that we can just concentrate that we have one Oba. So, however, that policies run through some systems and got to the time of Oba Esigie. One also believed that practice to him was wrong, was barbaric. To him, was barbaric. So he needed to find systematic way
to reform
that policy. That it doesn't matter if I become the Oba of Benin, not by choice. It's by ordination. Imasak Bondori Oba. All right. And so if
it's
predestined. So because what he had no control over will lead to the death of my mother. So some of the Uzamans, the Jones, who were also hereditary, You also will kill your mother. If I have to kill my mother because I am to become Oba, so you also, some of the chiefs are also hereditary. If you want to also become the Olia, the Ezomo, the Eho, you also will kill your mother, because it's almost the same thing. So they had to see reason, and they now had to say, in order for we, once you become an Oba, you officially declare your mother as a Yoba. She is to move from where you preside from, which is Ogbe, to go to Selu. At that time, it was very far apart. All right, it was not all Benin City, and so it was quarter. It was very far. So Uselu ni, she will now go and be presiding over Uselu, so as to more of like an outpost, meaning Juki or river, so that our power, our influences, our say does not encroach
to affect people in the
to affect your authority. So whenever she wants to do anything, not with our authority, but you will not grant her the authority to do whatever she wants to do over there. All right, so that was how Esigie solved that puzzle. That's because exactly he was a Christian. So some of these policies that were reformed was actually because Oba Esigie became a Christian. All right, so he also wanted his son to sort of take up that legacy, all right, take up that mantle of continuing the line of Christianity. However, the son now had what his father never had of Oba Esigie, which is real Western education. Now, he became a diplomat. A diplomat understands that you don't have to force through your belief on others before you can make your point. So when the Benins had to tell him, choose between this, and he chose the throne of his forefathers, he understands that I can also be a Christian, but I don't necessarily have to force my belief on the other Benin people. He understood that tradition should be separated from Christianity, which his father never understood. His father only felt that the Christianity is the only way. All right, so because of Oba Orhogbua's intelligence, he understood that traditions should be separated from religion. All right, so he was a Christian, but he never imposed Christianity
on
Benin people. All right, so that was one of the beauty of Oba Orhogbua. Now, he became the Oba. When he became the Oba, he looked around and see that the vast empire he inherited from his father, from his grandfather, from his great-grandfather. Yes, Oba Ewari the first is actually his great-grandfather. He understands that all these people are warrior kings, but they are more of landed warriors. All right? And he felt that Benin can no longer, we have pushed almost the limits of our warfare to all the lands that surrounds Benin. There's also one part, the western part of Benin, which tends to go across the transatlantic line, all right, like the riverine part of our empire, which was highly untouched at that time. He said, yeah, I have the skill, I have the training as a marine, all right? Let me build my ships. Let me create another type of warfare as a sea navigator. So obviously he assembled all the best people who already understood the languages of the water within the territory of his empire and brought them together. He constructed his own ship. Ships were not imported from Portugal. He constructed because he already had knowledge of how you can build ships. So Oba Orhogbuah actually constructed ships, warships. So it got to a point, he had everything all worked out, got the ammunitions because he already had those guns, and he started to expand the empire towards the waterline area. Of course, that it was during the time, his time, that places like Iko, which in one of your programs you already talked about, was established. All right, because he kept fighting, expanding the empire towards the transatlantic line, where we now refer to as Bight of Benin. All right, there are a series of controversies that the Benin.
But the big question, I have one question there. When we say the Benin kings were expanding the vast empire, So the people, were they conquering the people and joining them to the Benin people, or they was just expanding through landscape, not through the people, the indigenous people of those lands?
Yes.
Because when you look at Benin today, we are very minority. But we said we conquered 200 and something. Oba Esigie, the first, conquered 200 and something one villages. Oba Orhogbua expanded his vast empire. But when we are saying that, people will say, but we are very minority. How come we are minority?
Well, in real sense, we are not actually minority.
Okay.
We are trying to prove that we are not minority. That's because the rule and divide mechanism that was created by the British that conquered us in 1897. It's true. In conquest, in war conquest, you conquered some that most of these people, the territories we got through, they were not necessarily Benin people.
Okay.
All right? But they were conquered and reaugmented to Benin. Like you get to a place, you conquer it, you add it to your property. All right? But it didn't end there. The Benins were only interested in leadership positions. In leadership position. So in other words, when we conquer a set of a community, a set of a town, all right? Oba will send either his warrior or some of his sons to preside over that community as leadership. So most of these territories might not have been Benin people, but the leadership they have till date are all Benin ancestry. They all have Benin ancestry.
Rooted in Benin.
They are all rooted in Benin. So when you go to places like Iseluku, when you go to places like Onitsha Ugbo, or even Onitsha, there might have been Igbo people in those areas, but the leadership of those places, they are all Benin.
Rooted in Benin.
And they still agree to the fact that they are rooted in Benin. No, the only thing that our ancestors failed to understand was the principle of language as a mechanism of conquest. All right? So, otherwise, language would have been an instrument of conquest and not leadership. All right? They had believed that there's an ancient parable where Nazovedo, Genozeka, Gazeka, Genozudo, Gazudo, Amazewoma, Betagwe. That parable has been there right from the days of the Ogisos.
Yes.
In other words, no matter what you do to a man,
language is the foundation of culture. When you don't speak the language, which means you don't belong to that culture.
Yes, so
when you conquer that village or that town, people will consider it as part of Benin.
But what you don't understand, they believe that you don't have that right to take someone's language from them because it's too sacred. It's the most fundamental element of one's identity. So, irrespective of these people has been conquered, just take that leadership position. You don't need to take that language from them so that they can still retain their identity while being subject to the Oba of Benin. All right? So, but they never knew. If they had knew, the language is a stronger instrument of subjugation. It would have been easy to have enforced a language on these people, and we would have been a super majority in Nigeria, not just majority, but being a super majority in considering the outreach, the agadagada of the Benin people, the outreach of where our empire actually got to. All right, down to Benin Republic, down to Togo, and down to River Volta. All right, where at the time Orhogbua got to River Volta in present-day Ghana, that's when he learned that there were tribulations. His Benin were giving his son a very tough time. All right, so he had to. There was an allegation that was placed on Prince Odiawato, who later became Oba Esigie. So he needed to come so that you don't eventually win the external war and have an internal crisis that's going to tear the empire apart. So he has to return back to settle that dispute. All right, so Oba Orhogbua's legacy, to me, with all due respect to all the kings, is one of the most endearing, because today we are proud to say Eko is a land that was established by the Benin. We are proud to say that Benin got to Benin. We are proud to say Benin got to Togo. We are proud to say that Benin got to Ghana is because of the legacies of Oba Orhogbua. He's the Oba that has stretched the Benin Empire the most, farther than other warrior kings ever achieved altogether. So
my question is, given that Oba Orhogbua expanded the empire to Togo, Ghana, and other places, to date, do you think these people are still accepting the fact that Oba Orhogbua conquered them?
Well, conquest. Sometimes, not necessarily every of these regions were through conquest. For example, Lagos wasn't conquered. I try to make people get this theory very clear. Where you called Lagos today wasn't conquered. All right? Because you only conquer when you meet people there.
Oh, okay.
Lagos wasn't conquered.
Yeah,
now,
they just established Lagos through camping, according to what you said.
Yes, he built a camp. It's just like we have a lot of camps that were built by different Obas. For example, during Oba Esigie's war, Oba Esigie war against the Idah people, a camp was built at Great. A camp was built at Agenibode. You know, Ago Nibode, a centering camp. So to be watching whether the Idah people in Amokode, all right, a camp was built there, a central camp. So at Igweben, camp was also built there. All right, even between the disparity between the Benin Kingdom and the Ugi Kingdom, another kingdom that existed one time ago, a camp was also built at Oka. So different Obas during their tactics of warfare then to build camp to resist incoming militias. So also Orhogbua built his camp at Eko.
Oh, okay.
All right, so Eko is not the first camp that the Benin's built. We have built several camps, like where you now called Agenibode, which was actually Ago Enibode in Benin, means camp. A camp was also built at Oba. There's a community called Oba at Yokoriomo. A camp was also built there at the foragers during the time of the Benin Urunigbe wars. So camps were built strategically to look either as ammunition where you store your weapon, or to make it a sentry camp. If the invaders are coming, you will be able to have where to look at. Even a camp was also built at Ugoto during the time of Obavaraman warfare. And I am so now about Bioto as a sort of more of like a spiritual watchtower. So we shouldn't make a big deal out of all these things. Just like the Benins have been building camp because they understood the mechanism of warfare, which some of these persons never understood. That's why we're building camp in territories of the people we wish to conquer. But in establishing that camp, it was not by conquest. Because you only conquer people when you see aborigine. Otherwise, they should be able to come and tell us what was the name of the war the Benin's fought.
Yes.
That led to the conquest of Eko. The Benin's never fought anybody. No history documented by any historian could be able to point that Benin's fought with anybody.
Okay. So to close this history today, when did Oba Orhogbua join his ancestors?
When did? In 1580. He joined his ancestors in 1580. At the twilight, as a man who has achieved so much, spending most in 33 years he spent on the throne, spent almost about 25 years fighting war, building the legacies that we should be proud of today. We should be proud of today. There were some internal issues I like to talk about because it reminds me of religious tolerance. One Oba that has really inspired me the most, it's Oba Orhogbua. Oba Orhogbua's ideas about things should be a lesson to every individual on planet Earth. First, he was very religiously tolerant. All right, he didn't believe that the tradition of his people is greater than his Christian faith. And he didn't also believe that his Christian faith is greater than the tradition of his people. So
he didn't impose his...
He didn't impose any of his beliefs If you believe in whatever you believe in it. You don't need to use it to cause rancor with anybody. Now I'll give you how wise his beliefs were. There was a situation of some certain people when he had left. They discovered some of the because he was always on the road, was always on the sea. They committed despicable abomination. All right? When he got back, by the laws and traditions of the land, they were supposed to be sentenced to death. He realized that a section of the people goes against the tradition of the land consciously over a long period of time. When you subject them to death, that pain of reminding them the abomination they committed will not be that severe. Instead, in other words, let them continue to suffer for the rest of their life without having to kill them.
He placed a curse on them.
No, not necessarily a curse. He gave them an assignment that in all through the existence of their life, they must be working. There must one winner. There's never a time in their life where
it's like a punishment.
It's like a punishment. So those set of people they are called Emehe. There's a group called Emehi, and there's a group called Emehe, Emuehe. That's the one I'm referring to.
It's a kind of a family.
It's a family. It's a clan. They were stationed at Urubi under the care of Ehu. That wherever they must be working. Till date, at a time, once any of those family members, in order for them to demonstrate that they are still working till date, until your bagbera. That was a punishment of Orhogbua imposed on that family. He didn't kill them. He didn't place curse on them.
Placing a curse on them, or it's just a physical punishment?
No, it's just one winner. Not necessarily a curse. You know, I'm Oba. You don't argue with the Oba. Once the Oba tells you this is what, you see, if the Oba tells you to kill yourself, you will ask him, what techniques do you want me to use in killing myself? Not I don't know whether if the Oba asks you to jump, you ask him, how high do you want me to jump? Not Isa. You understand? So I'm Oba. So the
rest of the Oba
it's final. It's just final. Oba my high and I say
you can't dispute him.
You can't dispute it. It's the authority. You understand? So that was what Orhogbua did. Wa winner here waike. If you wakuwa wa winner, I mege na me wa winner. That's the internal punishment he placed them because of the atrocity they committed while he was away. All right, and obviously, even the style of leadership he used in settling the dispute, all right, of his son. Although that's another story that led to the death of Ehembuda's mother, Queen Umelu. In other words, Oba Orhogbua, one lesson that I've spoke about was his religious tolerance. Oba Orhogbua, his leadership quality was as good as a modern day diplomat, just like the same diplomatic leadership that our present Oba portrays in times of rancors and all that, which we have seen that he has portrayed in recent times. That was the same diplomatic approach Oba Orhogbua had, and that diplomatic approach came because he had a level of Western education. We are not saying that the Benins were not educated. Two different things. Western educations are different from the educations of our people. All right. So he had the education, the wisdom you learned, you got from God. That's the wisdom of the land. He had it. He also had a bit of intricacies of another lifestyle, another people. all right, and had that sort of wisdom, he made comparison between those two things. I knew that
he was exposed to two worldviews.
To two worldviews, exactly. So he was able to pick from these. This is good. This is good. This is bad. This is bad. Copulated them and used that aggregate idea from these two worldviews to administer his rule as the Oba of Benin.
That is what makes him a very unique Oba.
The most unique, as a matter of fact. Yes.
Thank you so much.
This
narration. Thank you. I just finished discussing about the history of Orhogbua with Imaswan Izoduwa. It's such an interesting story. You know, I learned that he was the first sailor king and the only sailor king in the history of Benin. And also, he was very literate. He was the first literate king as well. And he brought his a kind of a Portuguese, because he studied in Portugal. He brought a kind of a Portuguese worldviews and combined it with Benin worldviews together when he was the king of Benin. It was such an interesting history. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Stay tuned for our next history documentary. Thank you guys, and bye for now. Mota no karu e